So I've got, Trevor in one hospital getting factored to stop a bleed, and his mom's in another hospital dying of cancer. So I had these tragedies happen right in a row.
Welcome to Where Hope Begins, the Save One Life podcast, one country, one community, and one life at a time. I'm your host, Kai, and today we're joined by Rich Williams, this year's Wheel for the World cross-country rider, and the first to ever make the journey by motorcycle. At 75 years old, Rich is riding from Portland, Oregon to Portland, Maine to carry forward the legacy of Barry Haarde, the man who started this ride in 2012. Rich's connection to the cause runs deep and personal. Through his son, Trevor's diagnosis with severe Hemophilia A, through two late wives who each shaped Trevor's story, and through a friendship with Save One Life's founder that predates the ride by decades. Welcome to the podcast, Rich.
Thank you, Kai. Glad to be here.
Of course, it's wonderful to have you. So let's just start where all this began, your journey with bleeding disorders. Can you tell us what happened and how that shaped what came next?
Exactly. Many, many years ago, my wife, Rita, became pregnant with our twin boys, and she tried very, very hard to bring them both into the world, but she had a troubled pregnancy. And then at about 8.5 months, she began to hemorrhage severely. And by the time she got to the emergency room, one of the twins had expired in her womb. And a couple of days later, Trevor was born via cesarean section. Miraculously, they were able to save him. And when he was circumcised, he bled uncontrollably, and then he was diagnosed with severe Hemophilia A. And of course, Rita and I were just devastated by the loss of the twin brothers. As a new dad, I wanted to be a dad, and having two sons, they're getting two children out of one pregnancy. That's pretty cool. I was really excited about having two little boys to raise. And then when we found out Trevor had severe hemophilia, the pediatrician said, this guy's got it so bad, he'll be lucky if he lives to be 18 years old, and the blood factor is extremely expensive. It costs about $250,000 a year. And all of this happening at once was almost more than I could take. It was emotionally draining. We were thrilled to have Trevor, but heartbroken that his little twin brother was lost in all this. So we started to learn about hemophilia really fast. And Trevor had so many different bleeds as a little boy. We had to put a little helmet on his head to keep him from falling and hitting things in the house if he landed on the coffee table or something. And we went to the emergency room frequently to get the bleedings to stop. We didn't understand Factor VIII yet, or the insurance business yet. We had a lot to learn about that, but that came later. Mainly, we were just trying to keep the little guy alive, and it was a struggle because every time we'd turn around, you'd see a large bruise forming on an elbow or a knee or a hip, and we would take him to the emergency room. We both missed a lot of work. We were living a very good lifestyle. I was an engineer for Marriott hotels with a very decent salary, but all that changed. I mean, we had to sell the cars and the house and to make sure we had enough money to pay for the things that were going on in Trevor's life. Well, while all this was going on, when Trevor was just 4, his mom was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, which was fatal. She died the next year. She went into the hospital and had part of her colon removed. And so I've got, Trevor in one hospital getting factored to stop a bleed, and his mom's in another hospital dying of cancer. So I had these tragedies happen right in a row. So life was pretty tough for me and for Trevor because he couldn't understand what was going on. And so when I married again, I married a woman that had children of her own too, but she was very serious about raising Trevor. She went to night school, learned phlebotomy, because up to now we hadn't infused Trevor ourselves. We were relying on the medical professionals to do that for us, which took so long. They'd have to fit us in. We'd have to leave work. We'd have to get in the car, ice down Trevor's elbow or his hip or whatever, get him to the emergency room. And it was a full-time job. Once my wife, Dixie, learned how to infuse him, that changed everything. Then we learned that we could infuse factor prophylactically, which means you'd give it to him in advance of a bleed, so he'd have that missing protein in his body to control the bleeding, just like in a person without hemophilia. Mm-hmm. So we started infusing Trevor 3 times a week, sometimes 4, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then when he started school, we upped his dosage a little bit. So we kept the factor, coming. We kept it in a refrigerated cabinet in the house. And for a while, we used a home health care nurse until Dixie was proficient at doing it. And she infused Trevor 3 to 5 times a week for probably 8 years. And he still would have some breakthrough bleeds, but we had it under control. And as long as we would factor him, we could keep the hemophilia at bay. He wanted to learn to play basketball when he got to be about 10 years old. And then somebody called Child Protective Services on us, and they said, you shouldn't be allowing, he's a hemophiliac, you should not be allowing him to play basketball. So they came to the house and interviewed us, thought we were beating him because every time he'd go to the hospital or he'd show up at basketball practice, he had bruises. Sure. All over him. Mm-hmm. So those were tough years until he, got a little more control of all of his motor skills when he got into his teen years, and he was able to control the bleeding. But those early incidents of his little brother passing away in the womb and then losing his mom, those were traumatic for Trevor, and they definitely shaped his life. But then his stepmom did such a great job of taking care of him. But then when Trevor was in his 20s, then she passed away from heart failure. So it was just a long string of very unfortunate, very heartbreaking events that have marked his life and mine. Yeah.
I'm first, sorry for all of the tragedy you've experienced, and I can't even imagine, frankly. And I would say, so I think what I want to ask is about you. You as a dad navigating these tragedies, you as a person. Can you talk to us? Because I know a lot of families out there who are listening right now are maybe at the beginning of their journey with hemophilia.
Yes.
What do you wish they knew now? What did you do to persevere through those moments?
Thanks for asking that, because one of the things I'm really hoping that could be accomplished by this podcast is some of the new parents that are just in a panic right now, like I was nearly 40 years ago when Trevor was born. The thing that you need to know is that there is high quality factor on the market today that is synthetic, and that's what I recommend. When Trevor was a boy, the human factor was so risky. It was tainted with hepatitis and other things, and it was rough, to think you were giving your child this medication, this addition to his body, but it could be hurting him at the same time. That, for the most part, has been eliminated with the new synthetic factors, and the hemophilia is not something you can treat and walk away from. It. My experience is you've got to keep your eye on that child and watch what he does, and be sure that he's in safe areas and not taking ski jumps on his skateboard or like my son did, or on his bicycle, taking risks like that. You have to be really careful of that. But somehow you have to balance. Young boys want to have a life like their friends, and you don't want to keep them wrapped up in bubble wrap or foam rubber all the time. They have to know that if they try something, there's a risk with it, but that you can control it. So new parents, my heart goes out to them, and parents of children in foreign countries that don't have factor. That breaks my heart. I had all the advantages that you could have. I had a good salary, I had good insurance, good medical care, and we still panicked. We still had breakthrough bleeds. We still had to hospitalize him. And those parents that don't have those things, those are the people I'm hoping that we can reach out to with Save One Life and raising some money to sponsor some children in foreign countries so they can have an easier way of it. So that's one of the things I'm hoping to accomplish with this podcast and with my ride.
Yeah, so, great segue. Speaking of your ride, it's in service of Save One Life to raise money for, those in developing countries who don't have access, like you did. But before we go further, just tell us, how's Trevor doing today before we talk about the ride?
Trevor is doing well. He's had his ups and downs through his life with hemophilia and then some personal issues. I think that there's something about hemophilia that affects your psyche. Maybe you, as a person, you feel like you're different from everybody else. And I think that that's true with any other condition that a person might experience in their life, whether it's hemophilia or cystic fibrosis or in any of those congenital birth ailments that are not frequent but are uncommon but happen. And I think those children grow up with a feeling of they're not like everybody else, and either they withdraw or maybe they try to overreact to try to be noticed. And Trevor went through those periods too. He for a while in high school, he was trying to outdo other people and did some crazy behavior things, got himself into some trouble in high school by acting out, and sometimes he would fake bleed, so the school would call me because he had a test he wasn't prepared for and wanted me to take him to the hospital so he could skip the test. I saw through that after about the first 2 times he pulled that on me.
Yeah.
But just, I guess, like any other teenage kid would. But now he's moved back to the community where we raised him. We were in a nice community, lakeside in California called Lake Arrowhead in San Bernardino County. And he lives there now, and he is a butcher at the grocery store we used to frequent when he was a little boy. So he's moved back there. He still has some friends from high school there, and he's doing well. He has a steady job and his own little apartment, and bought himself a car a couple of years ago. So right now, fingers crossed and praying to God that he'll keep it up. Yeah. But he's doing well. His hemophilia is under control, and he sees the specialist. I think he still goes twice a year out to the Hemophilia Treatment Center in Los Angeles. They have a file on him that's about 3 inches thick. They've known him since he was born.
Wow.
And the doctor there and the social worker there know Trevor better than I do because they have seen him and documented his health and growth ever since he was, like 2 years old, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And, a lot of what I was thinking about just now is just the mental health journey as a parent, as, a widower, and, as someone with hemophilia. So like making sure they have access to resources that are just beyond, the treatment they need, but like the mental health resources and the community, like Save One Life, where you can connect with others who have it to share your stories, and the education. So, speaking of Save One Life, can you talk to us a little bit about how you met Laurie and, of course, your ride across the country?
Absolutely. Glad to talk to you about Laurie. My wife, Rita, who is Trevor's mom, somehow they got connected. I don't really know how. I think Laurie reached out to Rita, somehow finding out that she had just had Trevor, and reached out to her and asked her what she was experiencing, what was happening, what was going on in her life and Trevor's life. And Rita started communicating, writing stories, sending pictures, and Laurie collected those and stories from other new moms of hemophilia boys and wrote a book called Raising a Child with Hemophilia. There's several stories about Trevor in Laurie's first book. And that's what started it. But then what happened there, even on Rita's deathbed, she was still sending stories to Laurie about what was going on with Trevor just before she died. And I don't know if any of those stories got into any of Laurie's further publications, but I know the early ones did, and that was a very important part of our life. So there was a time when I think I didn't meet Laurie until Trevor was about 5. Rita had just died, and Laurie and her husband and her 3 kids were coming out to California, and she reached out to me and said, "Kevin and I would love to meet you and my new wife at the time, Dixie." So we went to the Hilton Hotel there in Anaheim and met them. And Trevor and Tommy, her son with hemophilia, got along just great. They were wrestling around the hotel room and out in the lobby of the hotel, and I met Laurie's 2 daughters. And so instantly we bonded as close and dear friends and stayed in touch through all the rest of the things that happened. And when Dixie started infusing Trevor at home, we told Laurie how that was going, and she used that information. And we just stayed in touch. Anytime Laurie was speaking somewhere close in Southern California, Dixie and I would go to the educational meetings, to anything from Hemophilia of Southern California, where we were living at the time. We would go to all of those things and kept up through the Parent Exchange Network that Laurie published, and stayed in touch via email and by phone. And then when Dixie passed away, then Laurie was one of the first to send me a card and share her condolences. And so now, you know, we meet each other in places and spend a few days together. My new wife, Sharon, and I were in Grand Canyon last year, and we met Laurie and her boyfriend, Doug. We went horseback riding along the rim of the canyon. We went to Jazz Fest in New Orleans last year. So now we hang out together in various places where we're traveling, and our friendship is stronger than ever. So her boyfriend, Doug, 3 years ago, did this bicycle ride like Barry did for 6 times.
Right.
He rode his bicycle from coast to coast. And I thought to myself, that's amazing. Doug doesn't have hemophilia. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have a child with hemophilia. Yet he did this, because he could. He was physically capable of doing it. But I'm about 10 years older than Doug. I just don't think I could ride a bicycle.
So that's the reason for the motorcycle.
to Billings and back, let alone across country. So I love riding my motorcycle. That's the thing I really enjoy doing. And I ride with a couple of different groups. And so I thought, I need to do this. I need to do this and show my love and respect for Trevor's mom, Rita. Trevor's twin brother, I named him Nigel. Trevor and Nigel. And for Rita, who passed away of cancer, and Dixie, who passed away, his stepmom, from heart failure. So for those people, and out of the respect I have for my wife, Sharon, who understands what's happened. She knows my son, Trevor. She loves my son, Trevor. In fact, she even knew my late wife, Dixie, because Sharon was a previous co-worker from about 20 years ago when I was the facility engineer at Yellowstone, and her family lived about 5 houses away. So Sharon and her family were friends of mine for years, and when she and her husband separated, we married, and she's now supporting this ride. So I decided to do it on my motorcycle. I love motorcycling, and I've got a large cruising bike, a very comfortable touring motorcycle, and decided I would go Portland to Portland. So that's what I'm doing. I'm leaving from Portland I'm leaving home on the 20th of August of this year, and I go straight. It takes me about 2.5 days to get to Portland from here. So I'm leaving on Monday morning, the 24th of August, and heading to Hermiston, then Kamei, Idaho. Then while we're in Helena, some musician friends of mine are getting together at a place called Lakeside on Hauser, and there's going to be a benefit concert there. So we're hoping to raise a few $100s there at that concert. I'll be playing some music with some friends of mine. Some buddies of mine will be playing. And then from there, we head over to Sturgis, but it's after the big motorcycle
I was going to say, being from Nebraska, one of the vacations you take is to Sturgis, then on up to Mount Rushmore. And I do recall, I think I was like 5 or 6, my little sister did get lost at one point, and it was very scary. But about 5 minutes later, you see her holding the hand of a sheriff, and all was well.
There you go.
But I remember it being a very overwhelming experience.
Indeed. Well, we're stopping there for a day to go to the Motorcycle Hall of Fame Museum at Sturgis, and then straight across. I'm not taking freeways. In fact, I got Doug's route from when he went on bicycle, because I don't like riding at 80 miles an hour on the freeway on the motorcycle. I tour better at 60 to 70 on 2-lane highways, so that's what I'll be doing. I'm going through South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and then I go to Oak Harbor, Ohio. My route takes me around the lake, the southern end of Lake Erie, I think, and where my wife's parents live. So I'm stopping there for a day, and then heading on to Pennsylvania, New York, and then Maine.
Wow.
So I should end my trip on 9/11 in Maine, which is a very important date in America. And I'm planning to ride 300 miles a day, 5 days a week. I'm taking every Sunday off and either a Wednesday or Thursday because at my age I need that extra rest.
It's amazing you're being so thoughtful about it.
Well, I don't want to overwhelm myself, and I don't
Sure.
want to embarrass Save One Life by, having some fatigue incident on the highway. So I'm going to try to take the good care of myself and stay in touch. I've got a Bluetooth headset in my helmet, so I can reach out to Cindy or to Laurie, or especially to Sharon if she wants to call. I just tap the intercom on my helmet, and I can just keep both hands on the handlebars and ride and talk to whoever wants to talk to me on the ride. So it's going to take me 3 full calendar weeks from Monday, the 24th, to Friday, September 11.
Wow. Well, it's incredible that you've taken so much tragedy in your life, and you've turned it into resilience, which seems to be a theme on this show, is connecting with parents like yourself who've experienced this and have turned it into action and have turned it into purpose. And it really is inspiring. And I guess as you're writing over these few weeks coming up, you'll have the memory of Nigel, Rita, Dixie, and even Barry in your heart. What do you want people kind of to take away from that?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is I know the panic I felt when Trevor was born and how ignorant I was of hemophilia. Anyone who listens to this or is a parent of a new parent of a child with hemophilia, there are numerous and many resources available, and they're not hard to find. Team up with your local chapter of the bleeding disorders group. Reach out to the national bleeding disorders groups, because they are loaded with digital information and stories of other parents who have gone through what I have endured, and similar stories, and some probably even worse than what I've endured. To not give up, don't back down. There are resources out there that are available to you to educate you on what to do and help you become a successful and better parent. And the memory of the loved ones that I've lost is a big deal for me with this ride. And I'm hoping that Save One Life can capitalize on this and use it to their best advantage. For me, it's going to be, some fun mixed in with a little heartache, and it's a bittersweet experience for me. But I'm hoping that it benefits anyone who cares to listen to our podcast and to reach out to Save One Life at saveonelife.net to find out more, because there is help available, and you never have to feel like that you're completely overwhelmed and you're in this all by yourself, because you're not. There's help available.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder to the listeners out there. And, I know before we start to wrap up, you wanted to mention the Patriot Guard of Montana. I know this is another motorcycle group you are a part of. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about that?
I will. Kai, thank you very much for allowing me to do that. One of the groups I ride with is the Patriot Guard, which is a national organization. Volunteers, most of them are military veterans, combat veterans, and motorcyclists. And so I joined the Patriot Guard of Montana about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I guess, 2 years ago. And when we're asked, we don't show up unannounced, but if the family of the deceased veteran wants us to escort the remains of that veteran to the graveside, we do that on our motorcycles. We have a police escort. We queue up on our motorcycles, and we lead the hearse from the funeral home to the graveside, and we stand a flag line. We all hold the United States flag on our right shoulder while that veteran is being interred into the graveside. And before that, at the funeral homes or the chapel where the funeral might be, we stand the flag line so the families can go through this line of U.S. flags, showing honor and respect for their deceased loved one who served our country. Mm-hmm. And we pay, respect. Even though I'm not a military veteran, my dad, my uncle, my grandfather all fought in world wars. But I do it because my mom's first husband was killed in Guadalcanal in World War II. And because I think it's a very worthwhile thing to do, to pay the honor and respect to the members of our military. So I ride with that group, and we have missions here in Great Falls once to twice a month, and we all do it on our bikes and pay our respects to the deceased veterans.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for that service. And again, I think you just now mentioned there was tragedy coupled with what you are now doing with action. How does someone do that? I think it's easier to kind of go into yourself and to remove yourself from these situations because of the pain. But you seem like someone who's been able to, and I'm sure it wasn't easy, you've been someone who's been able to step through those tragedies. And tell us about what is it like in those moments, knowing you're carrying this trauma, whether it's the Save One Life ride or with the Patriot Guard, and turning it into that action. What does that do for you personally?
There's a lot of emotion involved. And you are correct when you say that some people may turn inward and they may turn to some substance abuse or some changed behavior because of the trauma they've experienced. And that is indeed a problem. I did not want to succumb to that. And there was pain and heartache. And even though sometimes my life doesn't show it, I do have a strong faith in God. And reached out in prayer numerous times in desperation and in faith. And I believe that my life is very blessed. I mean, I don't know how I could survive without, my faith in God. And Sharon now, who's been so supportive, I've been very fortunate that I've been married to remarkable women, even though two of them have passed away. It's a blessing to be married again. I have a great best friend. She's very supportive of my ride. She knows why. She knows my son Trevor. She knows what I've been through with him. She's met Trevor and loves him. And she and Laurie have become good friends. So I've been blessed with those friendships. And you have to take action. It doesn't fall in your lap. I guarantee you that. Good fortune doesn't just fall in your lap for the most part. You have to seek it. You have to work for it, and you have to find it. So with this event that I'm taking on, this task that I'm taking on at my age, maybe the last big thing that I can do to show love and respect and honor for the people in my life. And to my son Trevor, who I still have a great deal of respect for, because he went through all the times we were trying to learn how to infuse him, and we missed so many times, and he just stood there and took it. He was a trooper. We trying to learn how to do it and practicing on him. He'd finally say, "Dad, that hurts. You've missed too many times. Give me a break. Come back and try later." Other people will, they have to adjust. They have to pull themselves up by the bootstraps and say, "I'm not going to let this beat me. I won't let it get me down. I've got to do something." Serving others is the best way to help you deal with your own pain and suffering. Going out and doing something for someone else, finding some way to help another person with hemophilia or another person in the community that might be struggling. Helping someone else, serving another person helps negate the pain you feel about your own situation.
Well, beautifully said. And, as we kind of zoom out to the kind of purpose and goal of Save One Life, is there a message you could share with, the family of a child overseas who will ultimately benefit from your ride? What would that message be?
That's a really good question. I have thought about this a lot. I don't really know what I could say, because the situations many of those folks live in are just such hardship and poverty and neglect. But hopefully, whatever little bits of funding we can come up with to provide, use it with our love and our respect and our care for you and your child with hemophilia in the country where you live, and know that it's given willingly with an open heart, and hope that you can do the best you can as a parent for your child to get him to the medical care that you can, or help get him or her some new clothes. However you choose to use that funds, use it in good health with our love and prayers sent to you.
Well, thank you, Rich, for your upcoming ride.
Indeed.
Your action, your incredible resilience. And to learn more about Wheels for the World 2026, visit saveonelife.net and head to fundraisers. Registration is open now through November 14th, which is Barry Haarde's birthday. And this year, all wheels counts, including motorcycles.
Exactly.
So if you'd like to support the mission, please follow the show, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who believes dignity and opportunity should never depend on geography. I'm Kai, and this is Where Hope Begins, the Save One Life podcast, one country, one community, and one life at a time. Thanks again, Rich.
Thanks, Guy.
Thank you for listening to Where Hope Begins, the Save One Life podcast, because when one life is supported, generations can be transformed. Presented by Save One Life in partnership with Balancing Life's Issues. Produced by me, Kai. Got an idea for the show? Send me an email at kai@balancinglifesissues.com. Did today's story move you? Sponsor a child at saveonelife.net/sponsorship. Anything else to add, Miles?
Yeah, Dada.